Welcome to the Not Old Better Show on radio and podcast. The show covering all things health, wellness, culture, and more. The show for all of us who aren't old, we're better. Each week, we'll interview superstars, experts, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things, all related to this wonderful experience of getting better, not older. Now, here's your host, the award-winning Paul Vogelzang.
Thank you. You are listening to the Not Old Better Show Art of Living interview series. I'm Paul Vogelzang, and today's episode is brought to you by Cozy Earth. How are you showing extra love this February, whether it's for someone special or just for yourself? Cozy Earth makes it easy to bring comfort and care into your everyday life. Thanks for joining us today. Author, security expert Tim Beard, our guest today, has seen things most of us haven't and wouldn't want to, and has spent decades thinking about safety, survival, and how to avoid danger before it happens. Not in theory, but in the real world, in places most of us would never choose to go. As a Marine and CIA officer, Tim Beard operated in some of the world's most dangerous environments. But today, here with us, he's focused on the everyday places that could be risky for you or your loved ones, like parking lots, elevators, ATMs, even your inbox. In his new Look Twice book series, Tim Beard teaches something he calls the Look Twice mindset, a clear-headed approach to noticing danger before it escalates. But he's quick to remind us safety isn't about fear, it's about preparation. You'll hear Tim say that today. This episode is all about that preparation, how seniors, caregivers, and families can protect themselves with simple, smart habits grounded in calm awareness, whether it's avoiding online scams or managing road rage. Tim Beard offers real tools with real-world impact. From ATMs and elevators to road rage and public transit, Tim Beard gives you the tools to stay sharp, stay safe, and stay in control, whether you're 35 or 75. And yes, we'll even talk about what he calls kill boxes, those everyday spaces that seem innocent but aren't. This conversation isn't just timely, it's essential. Coming up now, my conversation with author Tim Beard right here on the Not Old Better Show. I'm Paul Vogelzang. Let's get right into it. Author Tim Beard, welcome to the program.
Paul, thanks for having me on.
I'm looking forward to this conversation, Tim. I've got copies of your first two books, Volume 1, Volume 2, Look Twice, the Look Twice series. It's wonderful stuff. It's all about this idea of preparation. And you have this line that you in my research of you, it's just this refrain. I think it's very, very powerful. It says, safety isn't about fear. It's about preparation. And I want to be as helpful to my audience as you are within this series of books, and just say, how do we teach our cherished, older generation, of which I am clearly a part, our older loved ones, that being more aware isn't about living anxiously?
Yeah, and I want to tell your audience straight up, one thing that they need to understand, you can do this. It's not hard. It comes down to planning and preparation and focusing on the fundamentals, doing the basics, but every time the right way. So if you are constantly going through and you're applying, hey, I'm in the moment. I'm paying attention. I'm staying aware of what's going on around without being paranoid. You don't want to be paranoid because that also draws attention. People start looking over saying, why is that person acting kind of crazy, looking all over the place? It's just being aware, being in the moment and planning ahead before you have an adrenaline dump in your body and you start thinking not as clearly. When you're panicking or when you're on edge, oh, I'm breathing really fast, I have adrenaline, then you're not going to make the best decisions. So think about it in advance and you're going to be fine.
Thank you. Thank you for that. You served in the CIA's clandestine service, and you must have had moments when awareness was crucial, but paranoia might have kicked in a little bit. So
Yeah.
how did that experience within the CAA shape this idea that awareness, not paranoia, is the fundamental attribute?
And I got to say that the CIA officers who are still active, I'm retired, but the ones who are active, they're doing great work every single day. And they do that because of planning and preparation. There's a concept I want to introduce to your audience. It's the possible versus the probable. So, what do you do with that? The possible, I could have a meteor fall on me right now. Do I defend against that? Do I figure out what to do with that? Do I get all irritated about that? No, it's possible, but it's not probable. You cannot focus on every single thing that's going to happen to you. You're going to run, everyone has limited resources, they have limited bandwidth, they have limited focus. So you want to focus on what the most probable things are. What is something that actually could happen that is a probable threat that I need to deal with? And then put your attention on that type of stuff. So say, what are the 5 most likely things that could happen to me? Well, if this happens, I'm going to do this. If this happens, I'm going to do this. And by doing that, one, that keeps you calm, keeps the butterflies down in your stomach. Two, again, it goes back to what I said before. You can do this. You just have to think about stuff in advance. Some people are good under pressure, some people aren't. If you're one of those folks who's not as good under pressure, do a little more planning. Now, things are going to change as soon as you have contact with an adversary, but if you have a plan, at least you have a direction you're going, and you've written some stuff to that hard drive in your head. So you're going to go there and you're going to say, what do I do? If you've never thought about it, chances of you going into shock or freezing increase dramatically.
I mentioned the books, Look Twice, Volume 1, Look Twice. I have in my hand here Volume 2. I know Volume 2 is coming out. We'll have links to timbeardauthor.com where you can find out more information about these wonderful books. Certainly in terms of preparation, these two, along with the third that's coming out in March, are just going to be excellent resources, I think, for our audience. But maybe tell us a little bit about the Look Twice mindset and perhaps a couple of the very basic habits that we can develop that are going to give us a strong return on investment in terms of our own
Sure.
personal safety and mindset.
This is going to show also your audience how simple some of this stuff is. What does everyone use in 2026? Everyone has their head buried in a cell phone when they're walking around.
Mhm.
Don't do that. What you want to do is you want to put your phone away until you're in a safe place. If you want to use your phone, and people use their phones all the time, don't do it when you're exposed on the street because you're giving up your awareness. You're allowing people to get close to you and you don't even know what they're doing, or you appear to be what we call a soft target. The best way to handle that, if you need to use your phone and you're walking down the street, tuck into a coffee shop, go into a grocery store. Go into some kind of commercial establishment where you are separated from a potential adversary who can just grab you or grab your phone on the street, who can give you a shove. Go inside where you're surrounded by other people. Maybe put your back to a wall. That way, you only have to cover from your left to your right 180 degrees because no one's going to get up behind you. So that's a useful thing to do. The other one, people wear headphones and they put earbuds in their ears. Another one, please don't do that.
Hmm.
These are simple things. Could you imagine playing football or basketball wearing headphones and looking at your phone? How would that end up? That's a pretty good way to look at this. If you're walking down the street with your headphones on, with your face buried in the phone, and somebody decides that they want to take your handbag, they want to grab your wallet, they want to knock you down, you have something they want. You never see them coming. Those are pretty simple things.
But good advice, excellent advice. I, of course, have some earbuds in right now. I like to walk the dog, and I never wear the earbuds out walking the dog. Some of that is that I love to be surrounded by the nature. I like to
Sure.
hear kind of what's going on. But I think it does do exactly what you're just referring to. It keeps my instincts sharp. And you use that very distinctly in the book, too, as a skill that we can learn that helps us become more situationally aware. Going into a coffee shop is good. Having the back against the wall, those are great advices, great bits of advice. But What do we need to know if we're over 60 to keep us kind of situationally aware
Sure.
and just make sure to stay, kind of at the height of kind of our instincts, but not to be just so afraid?
One thing I want folks to do is to develop a baseline. And I'm going to tell you a technique that you can do to help with this. A baseline is you should have a baseline around your home, around your workplace, um, school, house of worship, shopping mall, strip mall, wherever you spend your time, you should have a baseline so you know what is normal and what's not normal. One way you can develop that, go to a local shopping mall place that you go. Sit on a bench and pull yourself out of everything. Just sit back for a while, and we used to call it people watching. Just watch people. Watch how fast do they walk? Because it's I've lived in 10 states and I've lived overseas. So I mean, people vary, they vary widely. Your audience, which is all over, it depends on where you're at. And they're gonna have very different baselines in different states because people have different cultures in those different states. Do people walk fast? Do they talk fast? How do they interact? Are they abrasive? Are they friendly? Do they travel in groups? Do you see people when you're in the mall? Do you see young people who are just wandering around and they're having a good time? Or do you see young people who are looking for some excitement that may not be in your best interests? Because maybe sometimes there's gang activities in malls. You can spot stuff like that when you step back and look at a situation. You can do the same thing in a public park. Go with a friend, sit on a bench, and just watch. See what is normal. That helps develop your observation. It helps develop your assessment of what's going on. It helps develop a good baseline, and that's something that keeps your skills sharp.
What is a scenario that you can tell us a little bit about that many people might think is just harmless, but in reality, it's anything but that? You mentioned this kind of scenario in the book. You call it out of town risks, and so that's what I'm hoping you'll touch on a little bit.
I can certainly touch on that. There was one also I wanted to mention real quick, and I'll touch on the out of town risks. If you're on an isolated trail in the woods, you're going out hiking, you're taking a walk, you're going jogging. If you still jog, but you're out hiking. That may have been great when you were 20 because you can run away. But most folks, as you age, maybe you're not running as much or you're not running fast. If you're out by yourself, this goes back to the possible versus the probable. Have there been problems on those trails where you're isolated? Maybe you don't want to go on an isolated trail anymore. Maybe you go walking in a park where there's other people. Some people think that that kind of a scenario is harmless, and it might be. It's possible. But if you've had problems in your area, what happens if you encounter somebody in the woods? What are you going to do? What happens if the situation degrades quickly? Where are you going to go? So that may be something you want to consider. If you're from out of town and you're in visiting a new place, you want to blend in. You don't want to look like you are somebody from out of town. That comes to what you wear. It comes down to how you comport yourself. It's very difficult because you're not going to have a baseline on a new town. It takes a little while to develop that. And somebody who is a potential adversary, a criminal who doesn't have your best interests at heart, they're going to pick somebody out who's not from there pretty quickly. You see it every day. You go to New York City. Who are the people that are staring up at the skyscrapers, looking around at how tall the buildings are? Those are tourists. The people who live there, they did that when they first moved there a long time ago. They don't look up anymore. They look at their phone, unfortunately, or they look where they're going. So it's pretty easy for an outsider to be spotted by somebody who's looking for it. Got to be careful on that.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Tim Beard, former CIA officer, U.S. Marine, and author of the new Look Twice series on personal safety. Now, up to this point, we've talked about mindset, awareness, and those everyday moments most of us overlook. Now we're getting into the part of the conversation that could actually change the way you move through the world. And what would you do if you suddenly realized the spot you were standing in was a trap? Not a theoretical one, but a real place with real risk. Coming up next, author Tim Beard breaks down what he calls kill boxes. the subtle cues your brain may already be picking up on, and why trusting those signals might just save your life. Please stay tuned after this. Around this time of year when February rolls in and the days are still chilly, just so you know, it's 13 degrees outside in the sunlight as I'm recording this right now. I always start thinking about little ways to show love, not just to my wife, kids, grandkids, but to myself too, whether it's a slower morning with some tea or a better night's sleep. That's where Cozy Earth comes in. I've been wearing their bamboo pajama set, well, viscose from bamboo, and let me tell you, it's a total game changer. Soft doesn't even begin to cover it. These pajamas feel like they were made just for me. They keep me warm, but not too warm. And the fabric, it drapes just right. It's like slipping into comfort at the end of a long day. My wife has her own pair now, too. And between the two of us, we've been sleeping better and feeling more cared for without even trying. This Valentine's season, Cozy Earth is running a buy one, get one PJ deal. Buy one, get one free, just for a limited time, from January 25th through February 8th. If you've been thinking of a little something for yourself or for someone special, this is a great way to say, I love you, without saying a word. And the best part, they offer a 100-night sleep trial. That's right, Cozy Earth, 100-night sleep trial. Remember that. If you don't love them, send them back. But trust me, you'll be keeping them. I certainly did. Plus, there's a 10-year warranty, which says a lot. These viral PJs sold out during the holidays, so now's your chance. Head over to CozyEarth.com and use my code NOBBOGO, that's NOBBOGO, to get a set for you and someone you care about. All of this will be in our show notes. And hey, if you get the post-purchase survey, make sure to say you heard about them from me right here. Celebrate everyday love with comfort that makes the little moments count. Cozy Earth PJs. Enjoy. Thanks, everybody. Author Tim Beard is our guest today. Tim Beard is a retired CIA clandestine service officer and a former Marine. He's operated in some of the most dangerous environments. Here talking to us today about his two books that are out now, available. Look Twice, Volume 1, Volume 2. We will have links so that our audience can find out more information about Tim, his two books that are out now, as well as a third volume that's coming out on the 10th of March. Again, look for those books. They're excellent resources. Tim, I want to talk for just a second about the digital scams that are just so prevalent today, and they happen to target disproportionately many in our older adult audience. And so I wonder if you could tell us just briefly about some of these digital scams that are going on, and one perhaps online interaction where you'd say stop and look twice before you act further and be prepared.
Sure. If somebody starts to pressure you and they need something done now and it involves money, stop. That's a huge warning sign. They are trying to use oftentimes authority or threats to pressure you to do something that's not in your best interests. Banks and government officials generally contact you via letter, via mail. Banks generally don't call you and say, you need to do this now. They're not going to call and ask for your password or your PIN. They're not going to say, if you get a text that's strange that says, you must click on this now, or, you're going to have this bad thing happen to you. Huge warning sign. Don't click on things, whether from emails or texts, especially if you don't expect them to be coming. And don't feel under pressure. That's when you want to stop. I had a situation that happened to me not too long ago. I had somebody who, I'll say a gentleman, but he wasn't being very gentlemanly. He called. He didn't know who I was. He called and he said, this is the Deputy Chief Inspector of Finances. I'm a financial investigator and you are under investigation. Really? How's that? And he said he worked for the IRS. One, I've never heard of a title like that at the IRS. And one of the things I said right away was, okay, I need to authenticate who you are. I need for you to send me an email from your .gov address that was issued to you by the United States government that lists who you are, your contact information, your formal title. I'll be happy to talk with you further once I see that. That pretty much terminated the call. I don't think he was expecting that. It was fraud. So that was one, I flipped it around on him. But two, I'm not going to do something. I'm not going to be bullied into something. Just that's where we say, hey, stop. What are you talking about here? Because that's just not how it's done.
Yeah, I like that because it really ties into this idea of being prepared. You have in your mind already your steps to make sure and validate who it is on the other end of the line. And asking for that .gov email address will confirm so many things, including putting an immediate stop to the intrusive to the scam.
I may expose my email. I'm not too worried about that. I mean, that's the worst thing that's going to happen to me. But I could hear the tone change when I was speaking with him, really caught him off guard. And I knew immediately it was fraud, terminated the call.
Perfect. You use the term kill box, and I love that. I just think that's just an amazingly powerful visual that gets created. Describe that to our audience and tell us how we could recognize some of these kinds of places, these
And
kill
another
boxes.
term you'll see in the book that is the same thing. It's called getting off the X. So
Mhm.
getting off the X, what is the X? The X is a place that an adversary, a potential criminal, has prepared where they want to do their evil deeds. That's where they want to do something that you don't want to have done to you. It could be a place where you are removed from observation from bystanders. It could be dark. Um, One street light might be out. If all the street lights are out because they took an air rifle and shot him out, something like that, that's a clue. You don't want to be there. If there's no security cameras present, maybe it's their turf. It's a place that they're very comfortable working, one or more individuals. So that is the X. It's to use for people who like war movies, a kill box or the ambush site in a war movie. That's where things happen. When that happens, the first thing you want to do is you want to get off the X. You want to get away from that because if they prepared that area, they aren't going to want to deal with you a block away. You want to try to move off of that and move towards light or towards people and make noise. You want to draw attention. Now, as you're moving around town, it's important that as you build your routes, when you leave your house, which is basically a hard point, a place you're safe, and then you're running your errands, which hopefully those places you've figured those out, you've got a baseline for them. Those can be hard points as well, where you feel pretty safe. You want to make sure you're not going to places that are the X. If you're going out for a restaurant, you have to park behind the restaurant and walk through an alley between a couple buildings to get around the front to get in. Maybe you don't want to do that, especially if you have more physical limitations because you're aging. Maybe you want to take an Uber that day if that's the only place to park, or park someplace else. Don't put yourself in that alley at night when it's dark, where nobody can see you, where somebody can take advantage of you. When you start to get close to that, if you feel uncomfortable, that's your subconscious telling you something. Go a different way.
Yeah, use those instincts and prepare. Realize that X might be the vulnerable spot. Go look
Right.
someplace else. I think those are just great bits. So let's talk a little bit more about preparation. And in particular, this term road rage. We hear that an awful lot. The term rage conjures up all this idea of emotionality. But road rage, as you discuss in the books, is really something that can be very dangerous. And so I wonder if you'll tell us just for a moment, what's one calm, kind of prepared response that can prevent one of these really bad situations from escalating?
Sure. A lot of people are trained by movies and they don't realize it. They watch movies and they see something like, that's a reflection of life. No, that's a story. It's a movie. Sometimes there are similarities, but one thing you see in movies a lot is you see people when they get in a difficult situation, they go faster and faster and faster and faster. Please don't do that because what's going to end up happening is you're going to have a situation where you lose control of your vehicle, where you run into somebody or run into something and cause a huge accident. If somebody is pursuing you, or if there's a road rage situation, you want to get away because that's the X. That's the X where that's happening. You want to get away, but you got to control your speed. So you don't want to go faster and faster. I spoke with somebody recently who was up to 120 miles an hour trying to get away from somebody. They had a little two-seater fancy sports car. It doesn't work well because you have adrenaline pouring through your system and you're going to be shaking and you lose a lot of your fine motor skills because of that. Slow down, try to get off the road, diffuse the situation. Try to turn onto a side street or get off the main road where you're at. But you don't, two things you don't want to have happen. One, you don't want to find yourself in a position where you're isolated or boxed in. And two, you don't want to stop because if you stop your vehicle, it may be very difficult to start moving again. Even if you're going slowly, you want to continue to keep your car moving because that keeps somebody from jumping out of their car and running up to your car and trying to engage you because you're going too fast for them. You just keep moving. So keep moving, watch your speed.
Let me kind of continue down that path, certainly with regard to emotional situations. Talking about safety with parents, with loved ones, with family can be emotionally charged. It can be very scary for all of us. And so I wonder if you'll tell us perhaps the best way to kind of begin this conversation about safety, about protecting ourselves, about being aware without causing a bunch of fear or tension.
First thing I would do is frame the conversation. I would say, we have to deal with the situation that's in front of us now. This is 2026. You and I remember back to 1980. You remember the situation in 1980. It was very different than what it is now. Very different in 1990, very different in 2000. Sometimes the violence that's out there may be far more severe. Where somebody used to be in a fist fight, now they may be pulling out a weapon or they may be extremely violent when they engage with you. So you have to deal with what we have now. And that doesn't change. I use a phrase in the book, bad news doesn't get better with age. It's not fine wine or cheese. So, you have to deal with what you got. And so that's the first thing, not to cause fear, but just say, hey, this is the situation we're looking at. Let's deal with this effectively through planning, through talking about it. Let's take a look at what physical limitations do you have? Everybody has increasing physical limitations as they get older. I have them, you have them, most people in your audience have them. It's just a fact of life. So take that into when you do your planning and also when you choose your activities. You can modify your activities and still have a great time and enjoy life, but also by mitigating risk in advance. And that can be a calming thing. We're going to help figure activities that are alternate activities that are not going to expose you to the same level of risk. You used to like to go running on lonely trails through the woods. Well, you're not running anymore. You're moving slower. Maybe you walk in the park with your friends. Maybe you walk on a treadmill in the gym. Maybe you choose a different activity that's not going to wear your knees out. These are all things we can talk about. But the thing that isn't going to change is the security environment in 2026 in whatever particular locale your audience is living in. They need to understand what that is, face facts, adjust those things, adjust what their choices are to those facts and their capabilities, and then make sound choices. And that helps to produce calm because you're doing the fundamentals the right way.
If someone from our audience listening just now were to adopt just one practice from the Look Twice series, what do you hope it is and why?
I use a term, I call it live under the radar. I would want them to live under the radar because blending in is one of the best things you can do to avoid. I use that 3 times because it's important. Avoid problems by blending in and living below the radar. You don't want to have significant displays of affluence. That draws attention. You want to limit the attack surface that you present to an adversary. What is that? If you are somebody who they see and go, there's a soft target. That's somebody who I can see fancy Rolex on the wrist. I can see fancy diamond ring, huge diamond ring that I really, really want. Well, you can still enjoy nice things in life, but maybe take that off when you go for the walk in the park and just wear a wedding band, perhaps. I know that when my wife and I travel overseas, she leaves her diamond ring at home. We have a little gold band that she'll put on. I wear a silicone ring. I have a platinum wedding ring that I wear most of the time, but when I go overseas, I wear a little silicone ring that I'm not worried about. Those little changes make you less visible as a target, but blend in. If you're in Boston, is that the best place to wear a cowboy hat? If you're in Dallas, a lot of people wear cowboy hats, but maybe not in Boston. So maybe choose how you dress so you blend in, so you don't appear as much of an outsider and you don't draw as much of attention. Limit the attack profile, the surface that people would look at.
All great stuff. Tim Beard, I want to jump into our kind of our rapid fire lightning
Sure.
round questions. Let's just knock these out. Just give us kind of your first sense.
Okay.
What's more suspicious, a stranger standing too close in line to one of us, or someone holding their phone too low?
Somebody standing too close because you're giving up your reaction time. And if they're in too close, it may be too late to do something. I don't like when people are too close to me. Have to consider culturally, because especially if you're traveling overseas, some cultures, people are going to stand closer to you. But if people, like here in the United States, for example, if they're standing right next to you, I'm going to move away. I don't like that.
Tim Beard, author of the Look Twice series. We will have links so that our audience can find out all about Tim Beard, all about the Look Twice books, the series, where to find them, and more information about Tim's work. Tim, what a pleasure it's been to talk with you. Thank you so much for being generous and for your time. And I guess just selfishly, I'd just like to say, please come back. I know our audience is going to be eager for this information as you do more work about this. Certainly as you start to release book 3, come back and talk to us again.
Well, thank you very much for your time and having me on.
Thank you. That's our show for today. Big thanks to author Tim Beard, former CIA officer, Marine, and now author of the Look Twice book series, for sharing not just stories from the field, but real, everyday tools we can use to stay safer and more aware. Remember, today's episode was brought to you by Cozy Earth. How are you showing extra love this February? Whether it's for someone special or just for yourself, Cozy Earth makes it easy to bring comfort and care into your everyday life. Please support our sponsors. Check out our show notes today for discounts and lots of great information about Cozy Earth. Whether you're running errands, logging in online, or just heading out for a walk, Tim Beard's reminder is clear. Safety isn't fear, it's preparation, and that preparation starts with paying attention. To hear this episode again, or to explore our full back catalog of interviews, visit us online at notold-better.com. You can follow us on social media for more updates, conversations, and behind-the-scenes information on Twitter at notoldbetter and on Instagram at notoldbetter. Today's show is a production of NOBS Studios. I'm your host, Paul Vogelzang. Thanks for spending time with me today. I hope you'll join me again next time. Please be well, be safe. Let's talk about better. The Not Old Better Show on radio and podcast. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next time.